Hey everybody, welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have Batya Ungar-Sargon with us today. We'll chat with her in just a second, but first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So Batya Ungar-Sargon is the host of Batya on NewsNation, where she is a weekend anchor. She is a frequent contributor to the New York Post and a columnist for the Free Press. And she just released her new book, The Jews and the Left, which she's here to discuss today. And let's just say we had a spirited conversation. Batya, welcome into the back room.
Thank you so much for having me.
Congrats on the book. It's called The Jews and the Left. So why don't you tell us about its main premise and why you felt it was important to write it now?
So there were two main audiences I was hoping to speak to. The first is a non-Jewish audience. I get asked all the time, especially by conservatives, Republicans, Christians, why are the Jews Democrats when the left has turned on the Jews and we have their backs? And I wanted to write a book that explained the two pieces of that, both why Jews became Democrats in the first place and then why the left turned on them. But I also wanted to tell American Jews about this prehistory that I had found from before we became Democrats, because this wasn't a foregone conclusion when we first got here, which was in 1654, by the way. There was 300 years of American Jewish history before American Jews became affiliated with the Democratic Party. And that history is so rich and so precious. And what I found really surprised me, and I think will surprise a lot of American Jews, which is that we were not seen as a minority, we were not seen as oppressed, and we were not seen as an immigrant community. We were seen for 300 years as founding partners in the creation of this great nation. We were seen as one of the three great faiths, and we were not oppressed. There was, of course, antisemitism, but it was the instances few and far between, and each of them was surrounded by a massive outpouring of love from the local community. And I thought it was really important on, the 250th anniversary of this great nation to remind my fellow Jewish Americans of that history that I think most of us have lost, if we ever knew it at all.
And so your book asks a provocative question, like how did one of the strongest political alliances in American history, which is the alliance between Jews and the left, begin to unravel? So what's the short version of that story?
I think we're all very familiar with the stories about how Jews became affiliated with the Democratic Party, starting with the labor movement, which we really built after 1 million Jews moved here from Russia, fleeing pogroms at the turn of the century. They then kind of moved into the FDR Democratic Party and the New Deal, which was by and large written by Jews, because the Jewish proletariat turned out to be a short-lived affair. Jews were sort of inexorably upwardly mobile, and so they were looking for a movement that was both pro-labor and pro-capitalist, because they had themselves become capitalists. And they found that in the New Deal. And of course, they were very drawn to the civil rights movement. And the way that I think about that is the march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge took place just 20 years after Auschwitz was liberated. It makes a lot of sense that American Jews saw in the civil rights movement what could have been them and yet what wasn't. It's funny because today, looking back, a lot of American Jews think that we were attached to the civil rights movement because we were similarly oppressed here, but it's the exact opposite. It's because Americans never treated us like an oppressed minority that American Jews felt so identified with the civil rights movement. What happened was, after Dr. King was assassinated, the movement took a turn into the Black Power movement, the Black separatist movement. And they kind of rejected Dr. King's view that America could and would make right on the promises it made to every American citizen, including Black Americans. They rejected the idea of integration. They saw themselves as having more in common with the global anti-colonialist movements, with the African fight to slough off the white colonists, than they did with their fellow white Americans here. And in order to sort of prove that you were part of this new vanguard, the kind of edgy, cool, new Black separatist movement, and not part of what was then seen as Dr. King's like lame vision, was this new anti-white language started to enter the lexicon. And because all of the white people they knew were Jews, that anti-white language was frequently anti-Semitic. So this was the first time that anti-Semitism started to enter into the left in a big way. The same time that this was happening, Israel went from being the beleaguered nation state of, the Holocaust survivors and the people who left the camps with the numbers on their arms and the young socialist utopia of the kibbutzim to the country that managed to bring to their knees 5 Arab nations in 1967. And around this time, when Israel was proving how strong it could be, there was this new postmodernist language developing in the academy and on the left, developing starting around that time in the 60s and the 70s, to where you had this rejection of the Judeo-Christian values of right versus wrong, true versus false, that this country had been built on. And instead, what you had was this post-colonial, post-structuralist French philosophical movement that said that there's no right versus wrong. There's only powerful versus powerless. There's oppressor and oppressed. And that is the most important paradigm that we have. The oppressed, people with darker skin, are inherently virtuous, and the oppressor, or people with lighter skin and more power, are inherently evil. This view would have stayed in the hallowed halls of the academy, except for another thing that was starting to develop around the same time, 70s and then the 80s and the 90s, which was a neoliberal economic world order that said that, we no longer respect working class people. We no longer view in labor, physical labor in a factory, let's say, or in the service industry, a pathway to the American dream. We're going to ship all these really good working class jobs overseas. We're going to import millions and millions of immigrants to do service labor jobs and to do construction. And the pathway to the middle class is going to go through a college education. This was the view that kind of took hold, especially in the Democratic Party. So what you ended up having was a situation to where exposure to this post-structuralist, anti-Western, oppressor-oppressed binary became a prerequisite for being part of the American elite. And thus it started to get massively mainstreamed on the left and really take over. And it's obvious how that worldview is always going to be on a collision course with Jews who are not oppressed, who are strong, who are successful, who are powerful, whether it's in America or in Israel. And so I think that's really the history of where it started with a cultural revolution. It then became an intellectual revolution. And then the economic piece of it, all of these things together created this perfect storm of turning the left against the Jews.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there.
A lot to disagree with.
Yeah. No, and I agree with a lot. I mean, look, the Democrats have had a problem with the working class. And this is why we've lost some major elections in the past 10, 15, 20 years. But I think they're finding their mojo again. And I think November might be different. But in terms of like being Jewish and Jewish oppression, I would say Jews aren't as oppressed as they used to be. We're still oppressed. I mean, I'm a Jew. And I think it's a complicated relationship Jews have with each other. When I was a kid, I heard of the self-loathing Jew. I'm not sure where that originated or what the real meaning is behind that. But, you can look at the modern history and see how, the conflict between Reform Jews and conservative Jews. And I think am I correct in that I saw somewhere that you're an Orthodox Jew? Is that true? Yeah. Okay. So, who's a real Jew? There's been that conflict and that debate within the Jewish religion. There's the form of Hasidim, or I think that don't believe Israel should exist. When I was growing up, I was like, how did Jews think that Israel shouldn't exist? What the hell is that about? And then it's hard to argue that since October 7th, so much has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I have gone through my own little journey. I started out just so aggressively defending Israel after October 7th. I'm a proud Jew. I'm not a religious Jew. I'm a proud Jew. I consider myself a Zionist. I believe in the Israeli state, and I believe in all the reasons why it should exist. And that support went on for a very long time. and I got angry at the students on the campuses and all that. And then there came a moment where, you know, I stopped getting angry at the genocide talk. I didn't adapt that word myself. I still don't think it's a genocide. I can argue that, you know, I see the points being made that there might be excessive militarism going on, but I don't think anybody sat down like Hitler and said, okay, let's wipe out these people. That's a genocide. And I think calling something a genocide when it's not kind of is demeaning and disrespectful to people who actually have experienced real genocide. But I've gone through my own inner conflict, and I just feel like today it's hard to really be a Jew and support Israel, but also want a homeland for the Palestinians and understand their cause. It's just
Why is that hard? Why is that hard?
Well, it's hard. It's not hard for me. It's hard for a lot of people.
Yeah. You are who my book is for, because you, I assume, like you're very proud of being Jewish, and to you, your Jewish identity probably has two main components. There's your Zionism, your support for other Jews, the sense of connection, a spiritual, cultural, historical connection to Jews worldwide, and your liberal values. You probably feel that those are very close to your heart when you think about, why am I proud to be a Jew? It's the same reason I'm proud to be a Democrat, because I care about the little guy, I care about the underdog. Like, these were the values American Jews were raised on, and they seemed coded both for Jewish identity and for being a Democrat. Am I right?
Yes, but it gets complicated when you start to see things that you just fundamentally cannot agree with and you think are wrong. But
exactly. So those two fundamental parts of the identity of most American Jews are now in conflict with each other.
That's right. And the progressive wing of the party has adapted this virulent anti-Israel, almost to the point of being anti-Semitic.
Yes.
Fervor.
You should be enraged that they did that to you, because Jews built the left. And you can so easily imagine a progressive movement
Wait. That who did what to me?
That the progressive left has forced a conflict between the two most precious parts of your Jewish identity.
No, I have to correct you and say that the only conflict going on is with my own morality, my own views, my own opinions. The hard right or the hard left or the progressives, nobody's put anything on me. I came to a point where I started to understand why people were getting so angry with Israel. I didn't necessarily label it as progressivism, because I happen to know a lot of Jews. I live in Manhattan. There's a lot of Jews in Manhattan. And they're not progressive, but they feel the same way. You know,
what?
I'm not as opinionated. They feel that what Israel is doing is wrong.
But that's you're allowed to disagree with what a sovereign nation is doing.
Sure. I don't like what my own president is doing. Right?
That's like utterly banal. Like, that is not an identity conflict. Okay. The progressive movement is not critical of how Israel is waging the war. That's the right. So the right is now.
No, it's progressives too.
No.
I talked to them.
The progressives have turned on the existence of the state of Israel. The left is anti-Zionist.
Some of them, for sure.
Yes. So that is worlds apart. It is worlds apart to say, I have a problem with how Donald Trump is handling immigration, and to say, I don't think America has a right to exist. Right? So worlds apart.
Yes.
Okay?
That's where you and I agree.
What I am saying is that it is outrageous that the progressive left, which was built by Jews, has arrived at a place where it is forcing Jews to choose between their pro-Israel Zionism and their progressive values.
Well,
it is outrageous.
I put that on my fellow Jews, because nobody's forcing me to do anything. I'm an intelligent person. I can make my own decisions based on what I see. I have friends in Israel. I have friends in Israel who don't support any of this. Where you and I differ is where things might be forced upon people. Okay, I give people credit for being able to make their own decisions. I went from one position to a somewhat of a different position.
Okay,
I didn't do that because I'm brainwashed or forced. I did it because I have critical thinking, I have intellectual curiosity, and I look at what's happening, and I can say for myself, I think some things are excessive. It doesn't change who I am. It doesn't change my views on the state of Israel, the existence of the state of Israel. It's very similar to how I view my own country. I do not support my country right now in the way it's being run, and I don't support my leadership. Doesn't mean I don't love America. I love America. I also love the idea of Israel. I've never been there, but I love the idea of Israel and why it must exist.
We're
So,
agreeing.
yeah,
So I'm not gonna. Well, this is
yeah,
not a debate.
yeah.
We're saying the same thing.
I think we are in many ways. Yeah. So, how does the conflict that you're talking about and the conflict on some level that I see and that we agree on, how does that get resolved? Because the statistics are not pretty for anti-Semitic rhetoric, anti-Semitic hate crimes in the last couple of years. I mean, I have Jonathan Greenblatt on my podcast all the time, but there seems to be something else happening right now within the Jewish community, which I could see getting bigger and bigger. So how does that resolve itself?
The first thing that we have to do to resolve this is to acknowledge where it's coming from. So there's this view that's common among Jews that the right is much more anti-Semitic. So they'll say, okay, maybe this guy doesn't like Israel. Maybe this person's an anti-Zionist, but the real anti-Semitism is on the right. And that's just completely false. Over the last year, everybody from Donald Trump down through the Republican senators, Republican congresspeople, influencers, anybody with any influence in the Republican Party, people have come on my show and denounced Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and drew a line in the sand. And Trump basically kicked these people out of the Republican Party. And that is the exact opposite of what's happening on the left. So the people who don't like Jews on the right are being utterly marginalized. You look at Tucker Carlson's polling numbers among Republicans, he's underwater by 7 points among Republicans. And what did Tucker Carlson do to earn the ire of Republicans? All he did was turn on the Jews. But meanwhile, on the left, the people who have
he's turned on Trump in other ways too.
Yeah, because of Trump's pro-Israel bond, because Trump is pro-Israel. That's the only reason.
People have turned on Trump because of his position on the Epstein files and the lack of
prosecutions. But not Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson turned on him because of his position on Israel. And as a result, he's been chased out of the Republican Party. And meanwhile, on the left, it's the exact opposite. The people who have the worst views on Jews and Israel have become celebrities. They are elevated. They are campaigned with. They are praised as the vanguard, as the future of the party. So it is unbelievably important that American Jews understand this. It's so painful. It is so painful because they're so used to seeing the right as anti-Semitic and the left as their home. And there's been a complete reversal of that. And there is so much denial about it. But you cannot fix a problem if you're in denial about what it is. NYU, 4 weeks ago, there was a flag flying over NYU that had a Jewish star in the middle and swastikas on either side. The left has appropriated the swastika, okay?
NYU allowed a flag with swastikas to fly on its campus?
Do you think I made that up?
No, but I'm not calling you a liar. I'm just saying, as someone who lives nearby, that sounds crazy.
I don't know what to tell you. It happened.
That is something I will look up after we end this conversation.
No, look it up right now. I don't want to be called a liar on your show. Look it up right now.
All right. Okay. I see the headline. I think I can already tell you where this conversation is going. Man charged with hate crimes over swastika flag flown on NYU campus. The man, Alexander Stepnowski, was arrested on Tuesday on the Lower East Side, blah, blah, blah. So in which a flag with two swastikas and a Star of David flew above a campus building. Okay. So, for the interest of time, that sounds to me, if I keep reading, that there was some guy who put a flag up. Not that NYU sanctioned the raising of a flag with swastikas.
No, of course I didn't mean to suggest NYU sanctioned it.
All right, well, that's how it sounded. So I'm glad we're clarifying that.
But this guy is a leftist, right? Like, this was a criticism of Israel from the left. It was the Israeli flag with a swastika on it. The left has
but he's also crazy because nobody normal does that. Nobody normal does that.
What do you mean? People do this all the time. They call Israel Nazis. It's exactly the same thing. They say Israel committed a genocide.
Right.
The only reason they use that word is to accuse Israel of the crimes of the Nazis. Because obviously it's not a genocide. Like, everybody knows that. So why are they using that word? They are appropriating the swastika. They are appropriating the crime of the Nazis against the Jews to tar the Jews.
But it's an isolated incident by a lone wolf. And that happens in every walk of life,
Leftists
on the left, on the right.
Hundreds of thousands of left-wing people tweet this at me and send me DMs about this with swastikas every single day. Every single day. This has been utterly, and the symbol of the swastika, I mean, Graham Plattner has a concentration camp guard skull and crossbones tattooed on his chest. He has a Totenkopf. This is the left today.
All right. I want to bring something up to you because I think this is important because you just brought up Graham Plattner. So last year when Elon Musk gave what many believed was a Nazi Sieg Heil salute, you explained it as, quote, a man with Asperger's exuberantly throwing his heart to the crowd.
Right.
And you accuse the accusers of, quote, inventing outrage.
Right.
So now we have Graham Plattner. And I'm curious to know why you don't have the same compassion or understanding for a Marine Corps veteran like Plattner, who did multiple tours of hellish combat duty, who, while on leave in Croatia, got drunk as a young dude and got a tattoo. He claims he didn't know what it was, whatever. Even if he kind of knew what it was, he was still young and dumb. And he came home with major PTSD and addiction problems. I personally don't see a difference between what you're accusing Plattner of and your support for a guy who, to me, looked like he threw a Sieg Heil salute.
You don't see a difference between a person who didn't do a Sieg Heil and a person who did, by your own admission, get a Nazi tattoo. You don't see a difference between those things?
He got a skull and bones tattoo. If you look up skull and bones, there's an awful lot of examples of how that's been used as a symbol that is not Nazi related.
I'm sorry, Andy, you are so deep in denial. 4 people said he told them it was a Nazi tattoo.
See, this is, I think, a problem. This is
Andy,
a problem.
Andy,
that when
4 people have said he told them it was a Nazi tattoo. He knew it was a Nazi tattoo.
No, he consistently says he doesn't, but because he was informed that it was offensive to people. Okay, so now you just contradicted what you just said.
What?
You said he knew. Now you're saying he was lying when he said he didn't know.
Yes, he knew and he's lying
So
when he said he didn't know. Those are the same exact thing. He knew what it was and he is lying. You have no idea of knowing what his intention was. I know that 4 people have come out and said he called it his Nazi tattoo when he talked to them. 4 people, including an ex-girlfriend who said he taught her the word Totenkopf. And I'm sorry, that is the last thing my great-grandparents saw before they were shoved into a gas.
Are you talking about the Republican operative who came out?
It's pathetic for a Jew to run cover for a Nazi tattoo. It is pathetic.
I'm just playing devil's advocate with you. I think it's pathetic for a Jew to say Musk didn't give what appeared to a lot of people to be a Sieg Heil salute. It's ridiculous only because you've decided it's ridiculous. This is, I think, the problem here. We either agree that there's real shit going on in the world as Jews and as humans, or we just play our sides and spin our rhetoric. And I don't play bullshit games. I call things as I see them. So I am going to get as upset or not upset with Musk's purported Sieg Heil as I am with Plattner's purported Nazi tattoo. I don't justify one and not the other.
Yeah, but reality
and that's what a lot of people are doing.
Andy,
and that contributes.
Reality exists.
That contributes
you can't just call
to the
something out
toxicity.
Because you want to be on both sides.
Okay, so let's continue the conversation. Musk good, not a salute. Plattner bad, Nazi tattoo. Where does this end? Where does this end?
You know that Elon Musk went and visited with the hostages and the hostage families in Israel.
And Plattner's family is half Jewish. Okay, your move.
But Plattner hates Israel. I'm saying there's no evidence that Elon Musk has ever said or done anything anti-Semitic. He's incredibly pro-Jewish.
Okay, we just did a Google test on NYU. Let's do a Google test. Show me where Plattner hates Israel. Give me one comment. One comment. One comment.
What do you mean?
One comment.
I'm trying to, but you keep saying one comment.
You asked me to Google. I did, and I proved you wrong. I'm asking you to Google right now. Google. What's wait?
You proved me right when you Googled me. You proved me right. You found the flag. What are you talking about?
All right. Unfortunately, we do live in an era of gaslighting, but this is being recorded. I should remind you. So when people listen to this, they're going to hear you say NYU flew a flag.
I said a flag was flown at NYU, which is exactly what you Googled and found. A flag was flown at NYU.
Okay, I will let the listeners decide for themselves whether you were suggesting that was
NYU flew the flag. Are you nuts?
I will let this episode speak for itself. So, where does it end? Because this just makes the toxicity worse. When you justify one thing and don't excuse it on the other side. That's just tribalism.
That's just tribalism.
Justify
people who do good things and you condemn people who do bad things, that's tribalism.
So now you're going to suggest
But it's
Musk has
not.
done good things?
I think him going to visit with the hostage families and wearing the hostage
Chainsaw Charlie,
necklace
who shut down all the aid programs that we had in this country that helped
We're
people
talking
all
about
over the
whether he
world.
was pro-Israel or not. I think he's very pro-Israel, and he did
Okay, but
something
here's
very
my problem.
pro-Israel at
As
a
a
time when it
Jew,
really mattered. I don't see how that has anything to do with Doge. I don't like Doge, but I
here's
like that he went to Israel and visited
Here's
with
my
the hostage
problem as a
families.
Jew.
I think that was extremely important.
Here's my problem as a Jew. There's a lot of things that go on in the world that don't necessarily involve Jews or Israel. I am not a single issue Jew. This is the problem, I think, inherently in the Jewish community right now. There are too many people who are doing this and saying, I don't give a shit what goes on in this world to anybody unless it's happening to Israel and Jews. And until we can get beyond that, until people can start looking at everything that goes on in this world, I don't think this changes. And it's not just inherently in the Jewish community. It's everywhere. The right wing, the Catholics are struggling with the same thing. We have a president who attacks the Pope. And then, of course, his little loyal henchmen, sycophants, they go off and they start attacking the Pope. This is happening everywhere. It's tribalism. And on the right, it's also worshiping someone who is operating like a cult leader. I don't see this ending anytime soon. And I do agree with the premise of your book and a lot of what you're saying, that there is a problem, there is a conflict in the Jewish community, because I see it. I've talked to people in and out of Israel, in this country. It bothers me because it really shouldn't be about Jews. It should just be about right and wrong. Same with politics. It shouldn't be about blue or red. It should be about right and wrong.
I think it should be about true or false.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why we got Google. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. This episode was produced and edited by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-produced by Matty Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud for Radio Free Rhiniecliff, with additional editing by Matty Rosenberg, music by Andrew Hollander, and graphic design by Cricket Lengyel. And with a special thanks to our sponsor, The Epicurean. Again, thanks for listening. Please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Backroom with Andy Ostroy YouTube channel, where you can watch full videos of our interviews. See you next time.